All right. Iran. Got to talk about the drones. We got to talk about the protests. That's definitely something I want to catch up on. Here's the video. Here we go.
The death of a young Iranian woman in police...
Their TOS. I don't think so. All right, this is an interview, I guess.
The death of a young Iranian woman in police custody has sparked weeks of violent protest in Iran and around the world. The UN and independent human rights groups have accused Iranian security forces of brutal suppression. Where does that leave attempts to restart the 2015 nuclear deal, which the US says is no longer...
Let's just be absolutely clear, folks. Brutal suppression and Western media saying, hey, there's brutal suppression, authoritarianism, is not evidence of that thing. Okay? That just means you have evidence of Western media telling you that thing. That's all. That's what that evidence. That's what that is. Okay. You've got every reason to be skeptical of anything that you are not, like, absolutely convinced of. You don't have to believe them. You don't have to. You simply don't.
Longer their focus.
I give you every reason not to.
Marandi, professor at Tehran University and political analyst.
So we all know that the whole process is politicized, but the Iranians are more than willing to solve the issue if the Americans are determined to have a deal.
Dr. Marandi blames the West and NATO for aggravating the protests and a whole catalogue of aggression against Iran and other countries in the region. And as Tehran denies supplying...
I think having a strong anti-cop bias is actually really effective. Because you see how in the United States, local news are the stenographers for the police, and they'll just say anything. And then you like zoom out, and then you do the geopolitics, and then you're like, well, who's acting like the cop in this situation, and who's acting like the local journalists? And it's just the same thing. It's the same thing. It's just that the narratives are way more complicated. But you see, like, the machinations a lot easier. Wild.
Flying drones to Moscow. Whose side does he take in the Ukraine-Russia war?
Of course, the stakes are much higher.
Mohammad Marandi, welcome to Conflict Zone. A couple of weeks ago, you tried to minimize the importance of the whole protest movement in Iran. You said it had died down after 3 or 4 days.
And, like, let's get these people on the record. They're going to be like, oh, let's sanction Iran. Okay, why? Oh, well, there's a brutal crackdown on some protests. What about 2020 right here in the United States? Should we have been sanctioned then? We've not yet been sanctioned for that. Or should we be sanctioned now? Who's asking these questions? Why does it feel like no one is asking those questions?
That wasn't true, was it? Because 2 days ago and 6 weeks since they began, the protests were reported in at least 7 cities, including Mashhad, Arak, Zahedan, Mahabad, and parts of Tehran. They're not dying down at all, are they?
No, I didn't try to do anything. I said the truth. The protests in the first couple of days were larger, and they were in different cities, and they were partially because Persian language media in London mostly, but also in other Western countries, lied at the very beginning, and they claimed that the young lady, Mahsa, was beaten to death. And so many people thought that this was a case of police.
All right. Are you fucking kidding me here? I'm surprised we're hearing this on, like, Western media. This is German state media, DW. Like, what? They're saying this out loud? Holy shit over here. Okay. Chat, we've been redeemed again.
Also thought that that may have been the case. But then later on, the footage came out, and it showed that she had left the police van. She wasn't even handcuffed. She wasn't holding her head. She didn't show any signs of physical pain. She went into a hall and sat there, and after a while she stood up, spoke to someone, and then suddenly collapsed. The autopsy
Okay, hold on.
Showed.
I need to pause and get coffee. I'll be right back.
No, we are not advocating for killing the leader of a foreign country or regime change. That is not the policy of the United States.
Okay. Back to this guy.
There are many physicians involved. That there was no physical abuse, and even there's a clip of her father beside her body where he said that there's no sign of abuse. So,
okay, I've never heard that before.
Persian language media funded by Western governments and the Saudis, many of them based in London, were provoking the Iranian public. But after a few days, the protests died down, but then we had the rise of very violent riots, and that's exactly what I said.
Well, let's talk about the violence in the riots. The UN Committee on the Rights of the Child has had plenty to say about that. It strongly condemned what it called grave violations of children's rights in Iran. According to reliable reports, it said some children were shot with live ammunition, others died as a result of beatings. Many families reported that despite grieving for the loss of a child, they were pressured to absolve security forces by declaring their children had committed suicide and making false confessions.
Why does this sound like bullshit?
That's a pretty sick tactic for your government to employ, isn't it?
No, that's a pretty sick tactic for the Western media and any institutions that are under the influence of the Western media to use.
Mohammad Marandi.
We're talking about the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child. We're talking about a UN committee.
Yeah. UN be lying.
We're talking about a UN committee
reporting that. Let's not talk about any UN committee. Let's talk about the UN and how they put the Saudis on a blacklist and removed them 72 hours later. The UN has no credibility here, and this is fake. The claims I've tweeted about this. The number of police officers that were murdered over the last few weeks at the instigation of media based in your country.
Was it students being shot?
They're roughly 28 or 29. Some of them were shot with guns. Let's not talk about fake news. All these children being killed all over the place. That's nonsense. Show me the footage of these children being killed.
Why is it nonsense?
Instead of these organizations that are funded by the United States.
Why is it nonsense? Here's an organization that won't be funded by the United States.
Why is it nonsense? We have every reason to believe Western media would lie to us. What, we're just being told students were shot? Is that right? What's going on here?
United States. This last weekend, the Coordinating Council of Teachers in Iran called for a nationwide strike to protest the crackdown on children. That
This guy
same
expects them to be able to like defend the whole thing,
said plainclothes police attacked the Shahed school in the northwest Adabil province. 10 pupils were injured badly enough to be hospitalized. Parents of the children were also attacked. You really think that your government going after children and killing unknown numbers of demonstrators is going to stop this unrest?
You're just going to swallow it whole, idiot?
So you're withdrawing the fake claim
I'm
that
not
a young
withdrawing any
girl
claim.
was killed at that school, right?
I'm not withdrawing any claim because I didn't make any claim.
The
I didn't
claim
make
in the
any
Western
claim.
media, the claim in the Western media, the filthy claim in the Western media, and the filthy claim in the Persian language media funded by your government, was that a girl was murdered at that school. And then it turned out that that girl didn't even go to that school. And she died because of a family tragedy. But
because of a family tragedy.
Your governments and those Iranian or so-called Iranian organizations funded by your governments in the West make such.
I don't know, but the thing is, just like we do here on the channel, you apply any amount of scrutiny to Empire's narratives and they just wither. Sometimes it takes less time, sometimes it takes more. But like, it appears as though that's what's happening here.
Fake claims so that the global public opinion would turn against Iran, and they make those claims in Iran because you have more Persian language media.
You know, without going into these every single claim myself,
directed towards Iranians than the Iranian government has. So when your MEK terrorist organization that's based in Europe and has a huge camp in Albania with thousands of people acting as trolls there, these people, they fought alongside Saddam Hussein against their own country. They killed 17,000 Iranians during the 1980s through assassination attacks, through bomb attacks. These are the people who are spreading fake news alongside the monarchists and other organizations that are funded by your governments.
I notice you don't want to address the violence and the violence and the
Who's this guy?
brutality of some of your security forces. Amnesty International.
Of course, I'm fine with addressing the
Amnesty International has reported widespread torture, severe beatings of protesters and onlookers, even sexual violence against women by your security forces. You think the people will forgive their leaders for this shocking brutality?
No, people will not forgive your leaders for interfering in our internal affairs and for spreading misinformation.
It's always someone else's fault, isn't it?
As a fucking turd.
It's always someone else's
using Persian language media. I'm speaking, Tim. I'm speaking. Don't try to run out the clock. So it's your Persian language media and your troll farms and your governments that are spreading misinformation both in Persian and in English across the globe. The police officers that were killed in Iran, 28 or 29 police officers, as far as I know, during that period, were killed, people who were policing the streets.
What?
If both in Persian and in English across the globe. The police officers that were killed in Iran, 28 or 29 police officers, as far as I know, during that period, were killed, people who were policing the streets.
What period?
If such numbers were killed in your country, what would be the response of your government? But what your Persian language media was doing during this period was encouraging rioters, to attack the police, to get revenge, as they called it, on police. They were telling people to make Molotov cocktails. If Ofcom, if any of this was in English, and if it was directed to an English audience, Ofcom would shut down those TV stations within minutes. But in your case, you can use it against Iran because your governments are waging war against the Iranian people. Your governments don't give a damn about human rights. Your governments are the ones who impose maximum pressure on women and children in this country and try to starve them to death, and then use media warfare against the country to create divisions.
Dr. Marandi, talk of running out the clock. I've given you a couple of minutes, 2-3 minutes. Isn't it time to face facts that Iranians, and a lot of Iranians are angry at your government? The head of Iran's semi-official ISPA polling center, Mehdi Bahabadi, says a considerable majority of Iranians harbor anger towards the Islamic Republic, a factor, he says, which is at a dangerous level. Every time there have been widespread protests, they subside only superficially while the anger piles up. None of this is going away, is it? None of this is going away. And you say it's all the West's fault.
Come on, Tim. We have many polling institutions in Iran and Western polling institutions, and the popular legitimacy of the Islamic Republic of Iran is second to none in this region. Your despotic allies in this region tell more than enough about your governments. In Iran, just 3 years ago, less than 3 years ago, after your leader, the leader of the so-called free world, murdered General Soleimani, we saw how many millions of people went to the streets in Tehran. So let's not pretend that the truth is anything that it is. Let's speak facts. Of course there's dissatisfaction in Iran. There's always dissatisfaction in Iran. You can go in a taxi now, 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Oh, shit. What is the West... The death of... Motherfucker. What is the West going to use this dissatisfaction for? They're using it for... acting like that it's giving them consent for more sanctions. All right, I lost the spot. Where were we? What was he just saying? What words? Because I can search the transcript. What was he just saying? Give me a couple words and I could search it. Despotic. All right, thank you.
Institutions, and the popular legitimacy of the Islamic Republic of Iran is second to none in this region. Your despotic allies in this region tell more than enough about your governments. In Iran, just 3 years ago, less than 3 years ago, after your leader, the leader of the so-called free world, murdered General Soleimani, we saw how many millions of people went to the streets in Tehran. So let's not pretend that the truth is anything that it is. Let's speak facts. Of course there's dissatisfaction in Iran. There's always dissatisfaction in Iran. You can go in a taxi now, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You can spend your time in Tehran. That's exactly the fact. That it shows the fact that in Iran, people can speak their minds. But can they do that in Saudi Arabia? Can they do that in many other parts of the world? Can people like me to easily do that and get a job in your government, in your country?
Why do you keep putting it out? Why do you play the what about game?
Why do you keep putting it on me?
About in Britain? What about Saudi Arabia? Why don't we just stay with Iran? Is that so difficult?
No, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about you.
Yeah, and I'm talking about you. We're not here to discuss me or the West.
You work for a government that use chemical weapons. No,
I don't work for a government. I don't work for a
yes, we are, because you have no credibility. You do. You work for the German government funds your channel.
You think,
and the German government gassed Iranians.
You think Iran
the German government gassed me twice.
So don't.
All right. This guy's got credibility? Not.
The German government gassed Iranians.
You think Iran
the German government gassed me twice.
You think Iran has credibility on the international stage? Really? These protests that you said died down have now spread to the cultural elite. They've spread to actors.
Bro, you just asked him a question. You got to let him answer.
Broadcasters, singers, sporting stars, people who are admired, followed, and have nothing to do with politics.
Tim,
where all these people
not in our league.
Brought up and incited by the West.
You're not in our league. You're not in our league. Don't run out.
This is
the clock, Tim. You're not in our league. Your government, the government that funds you, that gives you the opportunities to speak to me, your government gassed me twice. Where were you? You were working at the BBC back then. You were in your 30s when I was gassed twice. Where were you when they were gassing you? Don't talk about credibility. You don't have credibility. Your television station doesn't have credibility. Your government doesn't have credibility, and the European Union doesn't have credibility. So don't talk down to Iran. You, like Joseph Borrell, you take care of your garden.
I was getting fitted for my brown shirt.
And we'll live in our jungle.
You're entitled to your views, Dr. Marandi, but even among your own politicians, we're seeing the first signs of open dissent over the government's methods with these demonstrations. Former Speaker of Parliament, Ari Larijani, questioning the use of force, saying the police should not be used to encourage the wearing of the hijab. He's calling for a cultural solution. Iranian society, he said, needs more tolerance. Don't you agree with that?
So you're admitting that in Iran we have open debate. So you're admitting that we have all sorts of voices in Iran. So you're admitting that we have different people who argue with Iran and fight with each other in parliament, outside of parliament, in government, at universities. Yes, that is a part of Iran, and that has always been a part of Iran post-revolution. Not pre-revolution when your guys were in charge, but post-revolution. In fact, and this is something that will continue, but you can continue as you have been, as your colleagues have been, as Western media has been saying for the last 4 years, that the Islamic Republic of Iran...
They just like the rest of the world, Iran's got to be left to resolve their internal contradictions on their own, free of Western intervention. But it's not about resolving those internal contradictions. It's not about letting women wear their hijab or not. It's about the money. That's why the West does what it does.
Is about to implode. It is corrupt. It is unpopular. People hate it. It's collapsing. Of course, Iran, and paradoxically, it's also a growing menace. I don't know how you can have both at the same time, where it's on the one hand, it's unpopular, it's hated, and it's collapsing, but on the other hand, it's a growing menace and a growing threat to the world. But for 4 decades now, Iran has been about to collapse. And I think for the next 4 decades, we're going to be hearing the same wishful thinking in the Western media and Western think tanks again.
Well, let me try putting the question again. Don't you think Iranian society needs more tolerance? It's that simple. Can I have an answer?
This guy
Iranian
sucks.
society always needs more tolerance.
Iranian society should be less tolerant of Western judgment, like from this fucking empire cuck. Not this guy, the other guy.
Iranian society needs better government management. Iranian society always deserves better.
Got this
and that's what
colonist
we have
attitude.
to strive to do. And so does your society. And your society needs more tolerance. And your society should show, and your government should show a bit of humility and apologize for the crimes that it has committed to my people. And people like yourself should show more tolerance and have a more open mind about those of us who live in the jungle.
Oh, please.
As Borrell says.
Oh, please.
Don't take the moral high ground when your government is supporting
This guy sucks, dude.
Bashar al-Assad in Syria.
Oh, I have the moral high...
Oh, my God. It always goes right there. This guy's such a shit stain, dude. I've never seen this guy in my life. I hate him so much. Oh, please. Moralize. You support a guy that we lie about all the time. What the fuck, man? Hey, Judas. Oh, please. Say it again. This guy's so... He's got this Assad card up his sleeve the entire time. This guy is such a shit stain.
Oh, please.
As Borrell says.
Oh, please. Don't take the moral high ground when your government is supporting Bashar al-Assad in Syria.
Oh.
This is the thing they do every time.
Oh, I have the moral high ground.
One of the biggest killers and torturers in the Middle East. Please don't, please don't take the moral high.
What? It's like he's reading from a different set of books. You know what I mean? These guys got their own set of their own encyclopedia. And half of the encyclopedia is just, oh, please.
Ground, Dr. Marandi. I think you'll find that's difficult. Your Revolutionary
That
Guard.
sucks.
I will.
Your Revolutionary Guard.
When you
dismisses.
don't run out the clock.
Could I
you're
put a question to you? Could I put a question to you?
You know, if you're going to debate him,
Your
you got to let him
Revolutionary
respond.
Guard dismisses
You already did.
all the protests as sedition. Major General Hossein Salami, the sedition will be a stillborn baby and will go down in history as a disgrace for America. How helpful do you think that is in trying to address legitimate grievances of people?
Don't make a point and then change the topic so you can get away with it. Your government, NATO supported Al-Qaeda. In 2011 and 12, when I went to the Western media and said that
The guy works for DW. DW, they got Ramstein Air Base. Allows the United States to bomb the shit out of Africa whenever the fuck it wants. It's just it's like these guys have no legs to stand on. It's like, homie, you work for DW. You work for German public broadcast. The guy's such a shit stain. Fucking cuck for empire. Debate bro for empire. This is what Dylan Burns wants to be when he grows up.
Al-Qaeda is fighting in Syria. They said these are conspiracy theories. This is nonsense. Well, later on, we saw WikiLeaks, whose head is now in jail, the most famous political prisoner in the world in London.
This guy's a professor.
WikiLeaks said that according to Jake Sullivan, the current U.S. National Security Advisor, he sent an email to Hillary Clinton, the head of the State Department at that time, that in Syria, Al-Qaeda is on our side. No, it's your government, and your governments are the worst murderers in human history and in contemporary history.
You can't drag this other guy because he has no idea what's going on.
Then we have the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency document of 2012, which said a Salafist entity, regional countries allied to the United States, are trying to create a Salafist entity between Syria and Iraq. Well, what is that? What was that entity? It was ISIS. And then General Flynn at that time said that they were determined, and the United States allowed for that entity to be created.
Okay, you're clearly not interested in answering. You're clearly not interested in answering any questions.
No.
You're not interested in answering any questions.
Let me finish.
This is not a lecture, Dr. Marandi.
No, let me finish.
I asked you some questions. You don't want to answer them.
John Kerry said in a private conversation, "You're afraid. You're afraid.
You don't want to answer questions.
Go on. Ask your question.
My question
no, you're afraid.
My question, afraid
Kerry
of you,
said we let ISIS advance on Damascus.
There could have been a different approach by the government to this unrest, couldn't there? Like the one suggested by 5 leading Iranian economists earlier this month.
This guy's coping
so hard. Who say the authorities should listen to the demonstrators and prepare for fundamental change. Is there anybody inside?
Look how desperate he is to push this narrative. This is what it's all about right now. It hinges on this false narrative. And you know it's false because you know they always lie. But they're so desperate to keep coming back to, okay.
The government who is preparing for fundamental change, in your view?
First of all, going back to the previous question, the guards and whoever and anyone else who spoke about sedition, they were not talking about protesters. So don't try to twist their words. They were talking about those groups that are funded by the United States in Iraqi Kurdistan, that they have military camps there, and they carry out operations in Iran. They're talking about those organizations alongside the no man's land in Pakistan, Baluchistan, that are funded by your government or the United States and its allies and carry out operations in Iran. They're talking about those MEK terrorists that your governments allow to function across Europe that have killed many thousands of Iranians and acted as foot soldiers for Saddam Hussein, who are active in Iran by their own admission. So they're talking about that sedition. So don't
all right.
twist what he had to say.
You've had your
With
say.
regards
You've
to
had your
economists
lecture.
and others.
You've flung around all the accusations. You haven't
of
provided any evidence at all. Let's talk, if we may, about the nuclear issue, because
Every
you've been an advisor
accusation is
to the
an admission.
government on the nuclear issue. In your view, is this the end of the road for negotiations? We have the U.S. saying that they simply don't believe that Iran is prepared to do what's necessary to make the deal happen. In your view, is that the end of the road for the negotiations?
Well, Tim, who left the deal? Who violated the deal? Obama violated the deal when Iran was carrying out all of its commitments. Then Trump tore up the deal when Iran was carrying out all its commitments. Then Biden continued to pursue Trump's policies. So it wasn't Iran's fault. Iran began negotiating to make sure the loopholes that existed in the past after 2015 were removed so the United States could not cheat Iran again. They negotiated hard, gained many concessions. Finally, on the last day of negotiations in Vienna, the EU gave a text that met a lot of Iran's key demands. And the Iranians took it home. They gave their ideas about some of the problems that need to be resolved. And Joseph Borrell admitted, the US ally, Joseph Borrell admitted that the Iranian demands were reasonable. We thought at that time we had a deal. But the United States delayed and then gave a response that was obviously intended to push things back, probably, we thought back then, because of the November elections. So the problem is not the United States. And by the way, Iran, the Europeans and the Americans were constantly saying that it's almost too late. The Iranian nuclear program is crossing a threshold. Beyond this particular date, we can no longer continue negotiations. But they're all gone now. What happened? It was obvious. They were lying. They knew that Iran's nuclear program was peaceful. They knew that Iran was not developing a bomb. But it was all psychological warfare.
The UN says you've still not provided credible explanations for the presence of uranium at 3 locations that were never declared, and you just say it's time to close the false file. Do you enjoy playing these kind of games with the international community?
Well, Tim, first of all, it's not the international community, it's Western countries. You are not the international community. Your garden is only a small part of the international community. The Iranians have said that we're prepared to respond to all of the questions. But the problem is
such a rat,
that
dude.
the IAEA has a board of governors that is dominated by Western countries. And the head of the IAEA is someone that's always in the Western camp. The previous head of the IAEA, when he wanted to get elected, and let's go back to WikiLeaks, according to WikiLeaks documents, he told the Americans, if you put me in power, I will be in your camp on all major issues. So the Iranians are saying, take away the politics and bring in the technical experts, and the issues can easily be resolved. These issues that you're claiming were given by the Israeli regime to the IAEA. And these issues go back 20-some years ago when the Iranian nuclear program was taking baby steps. It was nothing compared to what it is today. So we all know that the whole process is politicized. But the Iranians are more than willing to solve the issue if the Americans are determined to have a deal.
You said, you were asked why Iran is enriching uranium at 60% levels. What the IAEA said, levels that are reached only by countries that are making nuclear bombs.
Hey,
and
guys.
you say Iran does that in order to get leverage in the talks.
Hey, Amber?
Let's call that what it really is.
Homie?
It's not leverage, it's a threat.
Yes, of
Pure
course.
and simple. It's a threat, isn't it? Pure and simple. If you don't get what you want, you'll build a bomb, despite all the assurances that you've given that you don't intend to do that.
Oh, my God.
No, Tim, do you know what a threat is? A threat is when your government say all options are on the table. A threat is when your government threaten to kill our people. That's a threat.
With the nukes that they have.
Enriching at 60% is leverage. What your governments do are threats, and they carry it out in different countries. They destroyed Iraq, they destroyed Libya, they sanction Venezuela. Your government steals money from the Venezuelan people and starves them, and then says the government in Venezuela, they mismanage. So you strangle people, and then you ask, why can't they breathe? No, your government threatens other countries, and your governments carry out those threats. So we take those seriously.
Dickhead.
But no, on the other hand, when the Iranians
the other governments that are
they're only saying it to tell the Europeans.
Yo, if the other governments didn't play a role, why do they do what they do?
And the Americans to sit down and get serious.
Dr. Marandi, much controversy.
It is your government. It is your government that's
always everybody else.
Harassing our people for over.
Homie, why is it never the people who he says it is? When it's clear that that's what they're doing. Why are you such a fucking cuck for empire?
For 100 years.
Always. Much controversy.
No, it's not everyone else. It's Western governments.
It's always somebody else.
It's not Asian. It is not Asia. It is not Latin America. It is not Africa. It's your government. It is NATO government. Don't pretend that you're the international community.
Yes.
Much controversy, briefly, over the last few days about
you can call it what you like.
About the reports of Iranian drones being used by Russia in its war with Ukraine.
Here we go.
Strenuous denials from Iranian officials, but the Ukrainians themselves have identified the devices as Shahed 136 drones. How ignorant does Iran think the rest of the world really is to try and claim that they didn't give them to Russia?
Don't call yourself the rest of the world. I'm first of all, I'm not in the foreign ministry, but a number of things, Tim. And
Every single one of his questions has one of these imperial brainworms baked in. Every single one of his questions that he's got written down is intentional. And that's what, to me, makes it especially dangerous.
Of myself, your governments lied. You advanced westwards. You advanced NATO eastwards to the Russian border. Your governments carried out a coup in Ukraine. Your government supported right-wing fascists like the Azov Battalion, which in the Western media, it was discussed. They were saying before the events this year that this is a big problem in Ukraine. And they killed 15 or 16,000 ethnic Russians in the Donbass region and in other parts of eastern Ukraine. Your governments provoked Russia. Your government allowed this to happen.
You've gone through the list and you've swallowed Russian propaganda.
Oh my God.
Dr. Marandi, it's been good to have you on Conflict Zone.
Thank
you very much.
I'm a Russian propagandist. I'm a Russian propagandist. I've been gassed twice by your government. The government that pays you. So I think, and your government's done that in the 20th century before, apparently, right?
Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
God, you are a piece of shit, dude. Look at you. He looks like a little troll. Go hide under your little bridge, you piece of shit. This guy's one foot in the grave. The other foot... I don't know. Trying to get a foot job from imperialism or something. They do the same move every time. Oh, you Russian propaganda. Oh, every time.
Damn these electric sex bands.
This guy's gonna act like DW's got the moral high ground. This guy's insane. He can't even shave himself. Dear God, dude. Folks, this is like... If I were a debate bro, I would have this in front of me for the rest of my life. I would have to like prepare for this shit, and it's just not worth it. And I'm glad that one guy did it. Push back against this propaganda. You could see the patterns arise in their arguments. Everything is about the international world order. Oh, law-abiding countries. We have to protect the garden from the jungle. This guy's such a shit stain. Yeah. Deflect, project, repeat. Dude, this guy is such a cock. All right. That was a really interesting interview, though. I was not expecting that. That was an explosion. That was an Iranian analyst? What do they call him? Iranian political analyst. Very interesting. Glad we watched it. All right. All right. What's the name of the video? Iran protests. When will Tehran listen? You're looking for a link. There you go. Okay. Okay. Donald Trump update. Still suspended. Well, still suspended. He's a professor too. Dimitri, thank you. Professor of English Literature and Orientalism, University of Tehran. Okay. I gotta click this link, but I can't show you. Pretty sure this is gonna be a TOS. Not sure what I'm watching. There's two Western Saudi-backed quote-unquote peaceful protesters assassinating two young men last night. Where's that supposed to be? Nancy got a visit from Hammer Guy? Minecraft? You talking about the attack on her husband? All right. France 24 host saying we have evidence. The fake claim about the schoolgirl in Ardibil being killed by police is actually true. But he doesn't know that Massamini is a different person. That's how Western media lies. They make false claims, keep repeating them as facts.
Okay, so how many police officers have been killed?
They're not protesters. They're rioters. In fact, the women that you've been saying in your media that have been killed, such as The Guardian, the New York Times, they're fake. Like the young girl who extensively was discussed in the Western media, that she was killed in a school in Ardebil by the police, and there was a lot of media reports about it. It turned out that the girl who was supposedly killed at that school didn't even go to that school. She was in a different school, and she died because of a family tragedy that was totally unrelated.
So you're telling us that Mahsa Amini died of natural causes, which is what the Iraqi state investigation.
Like he's not even listening, or he doesn't get it.
That. You're telling us no protesters have been killed, but we have evidence to the contrary that they have been killed. What about the situation about change in Iran? Because there are people calling for change in Iran. You can't deny that, can you?
Excuse me, what is the evidence that you have? Because I'd like you to share it with me here.
Is there anybody calling for change in Iran? Sir,
Share it with me. Share the evidence.
is there anybody calling for change in Iran, or is that something you're denying too?
Is anyone calling for change? Like, they think it's a slam dunk. Oh, gosh. He's so smarmy about it. What's wrong with these sickos? Just desperate to manufacture consent for empire.
The girl who in your media was allegedly killed in that city.
He's smiling, but he doesn't realize he's making a fool of himself. Look at him.
Was allegedly killed in that city. Do you know where it is on the map?
Oh, me.
So is anybody calling for change in Iran? That's the issue here we're looking at on the back of what happened.
Is anyone calling for change in Iran? That's the issue that we're looking at. What? Why? What do you mean? I mean, they're like calling for change from the West. Like they're asking the West to change. They're asking the West to stop sanctioning them. That is one of the things that they're saying. Every accusation is an admission. Find a way to turn it back on them.
Amini, which you say was natural causes.
Yes, and not what I say. What the physician said, what the autopsy said.
What's
yes, and
being
many
said.
people in France.
Do you understand
are
why people are skeptical about your discourse and your...
The guy with the... What was that? Was that a Kiwi? Was that an Australian accent? I'm sorry, I mixed them up. On France 24, trying to put this guy's credibility into question. Dan, is there anyone calling for change in the U.S.? What do you mean? Yeah. Yes, there is. So I hope China coups us, right? Is that that's the thing, right? The purpose of that question, the purpose of that guy's question, he thinks he's such a big brain about it, that maybe he does or doesn't realize the purpose of the question, which is to manufacture consent for U.S. intervention. If he cares about the people of Iran, he would not be doing the thing that he's doing. Framing it the way that he's doing is just downright criminal. If I were fucking Iran, I would sanction France 24. I swear to God. Sorry. Your news outlet does not get to come to Iran anymore. These people make the case for no free speech for Western NGOs. No free speech for them. President Xi, if you see this, please save us. I hope she sees this. Oh, Lord, she coming. Are you denying that there are many people in Iran asking for change? Are you denying that people are asking for change everywhere? Are you denying that you're not really making a point by saying this? Because people are asking for change everywhere? What the fuck is wrong with your brain? They have brain worms. This is the equivalent of them not really having anything to say, but like the fact that they just have words to type out in the moment feels like they have an argument, but they don't. That's not an argument. Try harder. The fact that this question is being posed is because you're an imperial cuck. Parroting, either you're doing this for free, which is embarrassing. You're being paid to ask a dumb fucking question. Who asks that? Who asks that? What kind of baby brain does this? Hey, guys. Popping off from Elon firing the person who banned Trump, yeah. Makes me wonder what's going to happen. Welcome in, James. We're waiting to see whether or not Trump gets unbanned. Still no. This is a story we're tracking live. We're on the Trump tracker. Are you denying that people are asking for change? Are you denying that people are asking for the United States to stop intervening? Are you denying that this kind of rhetoric is being used by the West to manufacture consent for more interventions in Iran, which the people are asking for fewer of? Are you denying that you're a dumb fuck? Are you denying that you don't deserve free speech? The N-word was trending for a little while? What the fuck? Propaganda. Look how hard they're pushing this narrative. Now they're just grasping at straws. Oh, well, they're asking for change, aren't they? We're going to come bring them change. So when we go bring them change, you can't say that they didn't ask for it. Because we talked about it for a whole week. You know what I mean? Iran. Now, this guy's incredible. Pushing back super hard on these narratives.